Welcome to something special. Welcome to TEDx. This TEDx event is part of a global conversation that takes place every day in every corner of the world. In schools, in theaters, in workplaces, even in prisons, people gather to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. More than 3,000 TEDx events are held every year in 170 countries. It's a remarkable thing. TEDx events are self-organized under a license from TED, a non-profit organization devoted to discovering and sharing powerful ideas in the form of TED Talks. It's not TED itself, but your local TEDx team of volunteers that has done all the work to put on today's event, including booking all of the speakers. It's this team's ideas, dedication, and time that have made this possible. We really hope today's program sparks an exciting conversation. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you will take out. And now, on with the show.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to TEDxHopeCollege 2025. Yeah. Thank you. My name is Aaron Vasquez, and I am this year's director. I'm thrilled to represent our executive team and speakers and volunteers this year in our 5th year as a student-led organization. TEDxHopeCollege is an independently organized TED-affiliated event aimed at sparking conversations, connections, and community. This evening, under the theme Resilient Identity, you'll hear from our speakers sharing personal stories of adversity that have not only shaped, but also strengthened their identities. Each talk is designed to offer insights into the transformative power of resilience. We ask that you engage actively tonight. Feel free to take notes on anything that resonates with you in this learning-focused environment. Please also note that we will have a 15-minute intermission after our first 5 speakers, which is a great opportunity to discuss the talks you heard during the first half. In case of an emergency, use the nearest exit. Those closest to the front may use the doors on the right or the left side right here. And restrooms are located behind the ticket desk in the lobby. And concessions, well, I'm pretty sure you guys know where concessions are. So we request that you set your phones to do not disturb and refrain from taking videos or photos during the TEDx event. Please know that we do have a professional photographer here, so he'll be taking plenty of pictures. And also know that we have a video recording service right now that is live streaming and recording videos of each speaker, which will be posted on the TEDx account, so on YouTube. So videos will be taken and photos will be taken. So after the event, feel free to take as many photos as you'd like or during intermission and tag us on Instagram. Before we begin our event, I'd like to recognize Hope College's recent loss of a beloved student and friend, Jennifer Kasunik, whose life we celebrated this morning at Dimnan Chapel. Please join me in a moment of silence to appreciate and honor Jennifer's life. Thank you. Without further ado, I hope you enjoyed TEDxHopeCollege 2025. And remember, ideas change everything. To kick off our event, help me welcome our first speaker, Megan Barta, a senior studying psychology from Northern California. Her talk is titled, From Piano to Prison, Mastering Presence. Please welcome Megan.
A friend of mine once gave me a compliment that stood out in my memory. We were collaborating on a project that required 2.5 to 3 hour meetings each night for a month. And one night, this friend, she said to me, "I admire your presence here. No matter where you're coming from or where you're going, as soon as you enter the room, we have your full attention." That praise kind of rattled around in my head for a few weeks. Was my friend right? Was my behavior here praiseworthy or even notable? Since then, I've realized that in this world that we live in, it is hard to be present, engaged right where our feet are. Many things keep us distracted. Late nights and early mornings render us unable to focus. Busyness keeps us flitting from one thing to the next, and ever-changing media insulates us from boredom. All these things allow us to do more things and to be in more places with more people than we ever have been before. Yet they also serve as sort of barriers to presence. Neuroscience research has taught us that the phenomenon that we refer to as multitasking refers not actually to our ability to engage in multiple complex tasks at once, rather to our ability to switch quickly back and forth between tasks. And in that switching, we lose some of our focus and productivity. Let that sink in. Multitasking is not real. That means that you cannot study well for your exam while watching the movie. Switching back and forth costs us attention and intention. I'm here tonight to convince you of the importance of presence. My hope is that you'll leave here hungry to be right where your feet are. I'll make my case for presence using 3 examples from my own life. The first is about how we can be present towards things that we create. The second is about how presence plays a role in our relationships. And the third is about how we can be present to our opportunities for learning and growth. With each illustration, I'll highlight the fruit of our effort to be present and what we risk by failing to be present. So my first example, how we can be present to things that we create. I see presence at work, in my own work, as an amateur pianist. I've recently been introduced to a rehearsal technique that I call the glacial speed technique. What this looks like is playing each note of the piece one at a time and then pausing to sort of meditate on each note. Leaving each note suspended in the air creates this feeling of being inside of the piece. My muscle memory is entirely broken down, and I have to think about every note as I play it, how it feels, how it sounds, how it follows the previous note, and leads into the next one. Now, you may have heard that to master a skill, all you need is 10,000 hours of practice. Well, researchers have updated that claim to say that, of course, while time spent practicing a skill is critical, the quality of time spent is a much stronger predictor of mastery than the quantity of hours. What that tells us is that being intentional in our process and practice is the most important thing that we can do when trying to create something of value. So, at the point of the music learning process, where I'm using the glacial speed technique, I would much rather be running through the parts of the piece that I know I can play well, because it's fun to make music that sounds good, not this arrhythmic, tension-demanding nonsense. But the practice is a real exercise in presence for me. I can't think of anything else when playing the piano this way. And the fruit of that sort of rehearsal is free and, hopefully, inspiring performances. I'm confident that everyone in this room is in the process of creating something. What are you creating? Maybe it's music or art, writing, a grad school application, a marriage, a family. Whatever it is, by being intentional in our process and present to our work, we give ourselves the chance to create the very best that we're capable of. By failing to be present to our work, we limit the quality of what we can produce, never really learning what we're capable of. The second example that I want to talk about is how presence plays a role in our relationships. There are a few types of interactions that I just rail against as barriers to presence. The first, Imagine that you meet up with a friend or an acquaintance for coffee at, say, 9:30 in the morning, and then at about 10:30 in 1 second, they excuse themselves and head off to their next appointment. Don't get me wrong, I work very hard to keep a tight schedule, but can you imagine a way to make a person feel more like a to-do list item rather than a friend? By reminding people that they're a line in our planner, we block real relational depth. The message that we send is that our minds are on the next engagement before we've even completed this one. Or take another example. I'm in the throes of a thrilling conversation with a friend. To my mind, we're solving the problems of the universe, and I'm about to make my most brilliant point yet when my friend's wrist vibrates with a non-urgent notification. I hold my breath, hoping against hope that the notification will go unanswered. Alas, my friend pulls out their phone to fire off a quick response. But they hit me with the, "Go on, I'm still listening." Guys, we can't multitask. So go ahead, do as your friend says and carry on talking for a few seconds and then pause and see how long it takes them to look up at you blankly, wondering why you've stopped talking and having no idea where you've left off. I don't blame anyone for being distracted by a watch that vibrates on their wrist. The people who are designing these things are the masters of getting our attention. The problem is that our smart watches and our phones and our laptops make us think that we can be present to our in-person connections at the same time as our online connections. We can't. We are constantly disrupting our precious relational time. A French philosopher named Simone Weil once wrote that attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. In this world that we live in, where we're strapped for time, we have 1,000 commitments demanding our attention, it is more critical than ever that we are present to our people when we make time for them. Instead of rushing out at the end of that meeting, try lingering generously and allowing the conversation to reach a natural end. Or, for those of us who have to keep a tight schedule, please exercise the self-discipline to take off the smartwatch, take your phone off the table, and generously give your undivided attention to another for the 1 hour that you have to offer. Our relationships are often the most fulfilling parts of our lives, our joy, our purpose, and the object of our attention. The fruit of our effort to be present to those around us is relational depth and richness. It's connectedness that staves off the likes of social isolation, anxiety, and depression. And by failing to be present to our people, we weaken our connections and harm our long-term relationships. The final example that I want to talk about tonight is about how we can be present towards our opportunities for learning and growth. Last fall, I had the chance to visit the other accredited Hope College campus location, which is in the nearby Muskegon Correctional Facility. At Muskegon, there's a cohort of men who are taking classes toward their Hope College bachelor's degree while serving time as members of the Hope Western Prison Education Program. During my visit, I was made aware that in some ways, the educational experience of the inside students is very similar to my own. And in other ways, for obvious reasons, could not be more different. A simple example is that the technology that the men have access to is severely restricted. So they were shocked when I told them that sometimes in class I look around and all I can see are people online shopping or streaming sporting events. And I think we were all a little surprised when I expressed this sort of envy at their laptop-free learning environment. The papers that the inside students write, the same papers as we're writing, are written by hand, or, for the lucky few, on old typewriters, painstakingly drafted and redrafted. I don't envy that. But with no smartphones in the classroom, no AI for help when you get stuck, no all-night partying, no extracurriculars vying for your attention, what impact do you think that undistracted learning has on these students? Many of the professors who teach in the prison say that the classroom is one of the best that they'll ever have the chance to teach in. present to their thoughts, present to their work, and present to their peers, the inside students are aware that they're participating in a transformational education experience that's increasing their sense of worth, sense of self, and their ability to engage critically and hopefully with the world around them. Meanwhile, on campus, my peers and I are tempted to breeze through class readings, submitting assignments that are good enough. As we hurry busily from one thing to the next, we forfeit some aspects of what has to be the most intentional opportunity for learning and growth that many of us will have in our entire lifetimes. This example of higher education is what's salient for me right now, but the same holds true for every person, no matter your educational status or history. Every day, we're offered opportunities to sharpen our skills and our minds. In all things, we can seek to learn and grow and be better than we were before. And the fruit of those efforts is enhancing the quality of our own lives and, by extension, the lives of those around us. By failing to be present to our opportunities for learning and for growth, we block ourselves from reaching our full potential. So, we get it. It's important to be present to our work, to our people, even to ourselves. But this is hard. I know. I propose that we start small, taking a thing or two off our calendars, taking our phones off the table, and taking advantage of opportunities for learning and growth. Neuropsychologist William James wrote that attention is the taking possession by the mind of one out of what seems several simultaneously possible objects or trains of thought. It implies withdrawal from one thing in order to deal effectively with others. What are you agreeing to attend to? Is it more than you can really attend to well? Just because you commit with your calendar does not mean you can commit with your mind. By being more selective about where we attribute our attention, we will miss out on opportunities, things to be a part of, things that other people are doing, things that appear online. But we are fooling ourselves if we think that we can produce or participate in anything of value without being present to it. By giving part of our attention to everything, we are fully present to nothing, because attention divided is intention lessened. So, create incredible things. Love people so well. Become the most that you can, and be where your feet are. I challenge you to master the art of presence. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Now, please welcome our next speaker, Emilia Portelli, a sophomore studying global studies from Las Vegas. Her talk is titled, Why Fitting In is a Recipe for Failure. Please welcome Emilia.
Do you remember in elementary school when your teacher would have you write a letter to your future self at the beginning of the school year? In 5th grade, I wrote at the end of my letter, Emilia, I hope you find out who you are. Now, 5th grade Emilia is so different from 14th grade Emilia, but aspects of her and her experience will forever remain in me. She was marked by excessive anxiety that made her miss school often. She became the joke of the class for never being there. She was made fun of by the girls in her grade for talking too loud, singing too often, having a different body size. She had no friends and only found comfort in being at home. She was even attacked for her mixed heritage, as if her classmates' limited understanding of culture and heritage could make her any less Latina. But she carried with her a joy for education, always seeking to learn more. She has and still has an immense love for singing, spending time with her parents, and her favorite, admiring her older brother, who was her role model in so many ways. But all she wanted was to be friends with the girls and her classmates. She wanted to make her teachers proud, despite constantly being berated. She wanted to walk into school without the feeling like she wasn't meant to be there. She just wanted to fit in. And if I could tell fifth grade Amelia anything, I would tell her this: fitting in and belonging are not the same. Fitting in means giving up parts of yourself by conforming to others around you. But belonging doesn't require permission. It means embracing your uniqueness and authenticity and trusting that the relationship you create or the space you enter is derived from your individuality. Whereas fitting in is a transactional self-betrayal of who you are created to be. You shrink and minimize yourself down to only a fraction of who you are every time you try to fit in. And I've discovered fitting in is a recipe for failure. But figuring out who you are is tricky, I agree. I am Greek, Italian, Salvadorian, born in another country and grew up in Las Vegas. And here I am all the way in West Michigan, in a city I never even knew existed until 2 years ago. And when I entered college, I knew that I was entering a world where not many people would share similar experiences to me. It wasn't on the forefront of my mind, however, until I entered my freshman year orientation class. As I looked around, I realized that some of my peers were learning about realities that others faced for the first time. Certain realities that I have experienced firsthand. From food and housing insecurity to the struggles of immigration. Being in this class was the first time as a young adult I realized I was different, that I didn't fit in. And after a conversation with my older brother, he diagnosed me with what he calls NFI syndrome, or not fitting in syndrome. It was the first time I had felt this, but the first time I heard it, but not the first time I had felt it. And it isn't limited to just somebody from a different race or ethnicity. I believe we have all shared this feeling of NFI syndrome before. Maybe you entered a room and there were people with different religions, thought processes, and experiences as you, and you couldn't relate. Or you were in a group and you had a different outlook, approach, or view on something, and it wasn't reciprocated. Those are moments of NFI syndrome. And it plagues millions of people all over the world who share the same feeling of not perfectly fitting into the mold or meeting the expectations of society and those around them. And being at Hope, the second time I experienced this was when I decided to rush a sorority. It was daunting, and thoughts were being created in my mind telling me that I wasn't going to get in because I was Latina. Basically, because I was different than the majority of the women around me. Well, after being accepted into the sorority and being met with nothing but love, grace, and kindness from my sisters, I knew that it was my NFI syndrome telling me I didn't belong. But after finally fitting in somewhere, I started being rejected by people of my own culture. This time, I was told that real Latinas didn't join sororities, that those spaces aren't meant for us. Was I really being told that I wasn't a real Latina? These unspoken societal expectations of what a Latina should look, think, and be like have never been regulations that I could adhere to, no matter how hard I tried. And the cognitive dissonance that I was experiencing felt so personal to me. It was as if the identity that I had worked so hard to create was being attacked and rejected. I didn't fit in with the Latinos telling me this, and it brought me back to my high school years. I grew up distant from much of my Latino family, so most of my exposure to my culture was at home. But my mom ensured to raise me in our heritage, from the food to the dance and the history. I knew that I was Latina. And when I was 15, I transferred to a high school that was 95% Hispanic. I was excited. For the first time, I would be surrounded by so many people who shared a similar heritage to me. I thought I would fit in. And I believed that it was my time to create connections with so many people who I thought would be like me, since I felt so rejected in elementary and middle school. Unfortunately, I was labeled the white girl or the no sabo. No sabo is a term that refers to somebody with Hispanic or Latino roots that does not speak Spanish well. It's a play on the idea of somebody attempting to speak Spanish and messing up, mistakenly saying no sabo instead of no sé, which ironically is how you say, I don't know. This outs somebody for being less knowledgeable, having less culture, or maybe somebody even who rejects their culture. What was meant to be a time of further reunion and connection with my heritage became a time of alienation from people I thought I would be able to relate to. In high school, I was too white. In college, I became too Latina. I didn't fit in anywhere according to the standards of those around me, and I felt impotent. It was my differences that made me feel insecure, from how I looked, how I spoke, where I grew up. After a conversation with my mom and being reminded of who I am by my father, I realized that seeking the approval of others was getting me nowhere. Trying to fit in was getting me nowhere. I was living in a constant state of trying to prove my identity to others, and I was failing. But the moment I realized that I didn't need to seek the acceptance of others and be approved by somebody else, I understood that I belonged. Because the parts of myself that are different than anybody else are the parts of my identity that have never needed justification from any peer, teacher, or social rule. I belonged the moment I realized I am enough just as I am. And the moment you realize that you also belong, your self-esteem won't crumble at the utterance of somebody saying, you are not worthy. Figuring out your identity can be tricky, I agree. But here is the biggest piece of advice that I have. Do not listen to the negativity. Those are not the characteristics that define you, whether it comes from your mind or something somebody else has spewed. Here is what I mean. I implore you all to look back at a time in your life where somebody has misunderstood you, mistook what you said, or has even rejected you. Maybe your admiration was seen as jealousy. Your patience was seen as apathy. Your immense joy for the world could have been seen as aloofness. Think back to a time where somebody saw you and spun a different version to fit their narrowed view of how they think you should be. Those are the real characteristics that define you, hidden under the guise of an insult. Rip those negative pages out of your life story. They do not define you. I don't assign the annoying girl to my identity because it's not true to who I am. And I won't let the negative words of somebody else remain and live inside me. And NFI syndrome was just something my mind created, and it became a part of the journey to understand and hone my identity. But I will never let it affect me ever again. And I certainly don't call myself a no sabo. That was just somebody's attempt to offend me because I didn't fit in to how they think I should be. What I really am is a proud Latina. I am a Latina whether I fit the mold or not, whether my Spanish is perfect or not. And here I am as a first-generation student learning to speak Spanish at the best college I could have ever dreamed of attending. I don't live to be approved by anybody else. When you know you belong, it'll come from within. It is an inner renaissance rather than an external validation. You will be able to enter spaces where before you could have felt discouraged to live freely and authentically. Whether I look like everybody in the room or no one, I will walk in with confidence because I know that I am meant to be there, because I am a unique individual just like all of you. And now I can enter rooms with Latinos despite my imperfect Spanish, knowing I'm still meant to be there. Because somebody else's perception of me cannot change any part of me. In 5th grade, I wrote to myself, Emilia, I hope you find out who you are. If I could go back in time, I would show that little girl who she has become. Despite constantly being rejected for every part of her unique self, she has grown into a woman much stronger and more resilient than she could have ever imagined. Emilia, I know who I am. My identity is contingent upon myself, my faith, my experiences, and my culture. It's a part of myself that still loves to sing and dance like nobody's watching, to talk as loud as I want and watch my favorite shows, even if others don't like it. It is for nobody else to touch or manipulate. And just like the signature in my letter, I leave my talk with this. Amidst the busyness of your life, how you grew up, who you surround yourselves with, or who you are claiming to be, you are meant to be here. Your true identity is waiting to come out and shine. And you are freed from the shackles that have been placed upon you. So learn who you are without the outside voices that have been ringing in your ears your whole life. I hope you find out who you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. Now, please welcome our next speaker, Griffin Block, a junior studying political science from Clinton Township, Michigan. His talk is titled, Flipping the Narrative on Learning Disabilities. Please welcome Griffin.
How do you define a hero? In 1995, the great Christopher Reeve, aka Superman, was involved in a horrific accident which left him paralyzed from the neck down. In 1998, he wrote this quote, defining a hero. A hero is an ordinary individual who finds the strength to persevere and endure in spite of overwhelming obstacles. Good evening, everyone. My name is Griffin Block. I'm just an ordinary individual, but I'm here tonight to talk to you about my superpower. It took me many years to discover it, but I could be a hero too. I learned this through having a severe learning disability. I overcame many struggles growing up. When I was 2 years old, my parents noticed that I was babbling over my words, and I wasn't putting words together at all, like any normal toddler. So my parents took me to see a doctor. The doctors diagnosed me with apraxia, a rare learning disability. The scientific definition of apraxia is a neurological disorder which affects the brain's ability to plan and sequence the movements needed to produce speech and motor skills. When I speak, I put stress on the wrong syllables, which distorts the sound of the word when I speak. It also impacts my motor skills, which include the ability to walk, balance, and other activities involving movement. I saw many doctors in my youth, all of which said that it'd be difficult for me to be academically successful in school. They thought I couldn't make friends because I wouldn't be able to communicate with my peers. My parents were told that it was unlikely that I would be able to participate in any team sports and to prepare for the strong possibility that I might not even go to college or have a successful career. And I'm not alone. In a study done by the Learning Disabilities Association of America. Learning disabilities affect approximately 15% of the US population. Studies also have shown that there's a significant gap in graduation rates of students with and without learning disabilities, highlighting the need for improved access to accommodations and support systems in higher educational institutions. This led to many years of intensive speech and physical therapy. After much hard work and support from my parents and family, my speech began to improve, and I started making friends. While I was happy and enjoyed communicating with my friends and teachers, reading was still difficult for me. I did not learn like the other kids. I had to memorize every new word. Around this time, I remember seeing students making fun of other students with learning disabilities, calling them special needs kids or other offensive slurs. I felt the prejudice of what a learning disability is from my peers' point of view. There were times when I felt like I couldn't be honest with myself or my friends about my learning disability. I felt ashamed of being a person with a learning disability. I didn't know it yet, but I could turn my weakness into my superpower. In middle school, I had an advisor who could help me with this. Her name was Mrs. Wentz. She mentored me from a young age to better understand my learning disability. She changed my perception of my learning disability, making me think of it as more of a superpower rather than something wrong with me. I remember doing many exercises with her to help me better understand what my learning style was. These included visual learning, reading, memorization, and pattern recognition. A mentor like Mrs. Went gave me the confidence I needed to see myself in this new light. I also had many other teachers who helped me along my journey. These math and English teachers and mentors helped me to realize that memorization was my learning style. I had to memorize every word, phrase, and question over and over again for me to properly understand it. This led me to become successful in areas such as geography, history, and political science. So I challenge you guys to come to me after this talk and to ask me to name any country of any capital in the world, and I'll do it no problem. In high school, I had an advisor who helped, my high school advisor, Mrs. Makar, helped create an environment for me to grow my learning style. She also taught me how to advocate for myself when times were tough, and she taught me how to communicate with my teachers and peers in a professional manner. I learned what accommodations I needed to become successful in the classroom. Advocating for your needs can be done in any part of your life rather than being personal or professional. Here is how you can communicate with your teachers, professors, or even your employer. This is my learning triangle. And in this example, I'll show you how me as the student can communicate with my professors to figure out the best possible solution to figure out my learning accommodations. So this is how it works. So I go and have an open conversation with my professor. We talk about my learning disability, and I talk to them about my learning style and how I succeed in the classroom. Then my professors goes and do their research. They figure out what exactly my learning disability is, since it's so rare, and then they figure out the best possible solution of how they can adapt their teaching style around my learning needs. Then that trickles back down to me, and that becomes my success plan, my accommodations to be the most successful as I possibly can in that class. While in high school, I started to become more comfortable to openly talk about my learning disability to my friends and others. I wasn't ashamed anymore to tell them I took exams in other classrooms. Many of my friends were surprised and even thought I was lying to them when I told them I had a learning disability. They knew me as the smart one, but they didn't realize the struggles that I had to overcome and the determination that I had to do my best, even with a learning disability. There's a perception that many people hold against people with learning disabilities, that they are not as smart or well-spoken or knowledgeable. This is a bias that needs to be changed through awareness and education on this topic. After many years living with a learning disability and my passion for policy change, I believe that there could be successful developments in the education system at the college level or any level that can benefit the needs of students with learning disabilities. It's imperative for educators to be trained on the different types of learning disabilities and for them to understand when to adapt their teaching styles around their students' needs. Students should be encouraged to openly discuss their learning style with their instructors and to figure out what's the best possible solution for them to succeed in their class. I've grown and matured quite a bit during my college experience. I even do things that doctors told me would have been impossible because of my apraxia. I played 2 college sports here at Hope College. I achieved this through many years of hard work, from the time I was young until now. Learning about my body and strengthening my motor skills has helped me to achieve a level of success that not many student athletes get to experience. College has also helped me to realize what I can and cannot do when it comes to certain things like my major. I originally came here to Hope College to major in environmental engineering, but I later learned that political science fitted my learning style better and my passion. Because of my apraxia, my research skills are excellent, because after I read research over and over again, I pick out all the hidden details that many people overlook. Not to mention, it fosters the ability to brainstorm all sorts of ideas, especially ones that most people might not think connect to the original idea. I want to use these creative thinking and abstract problem-solving skills to build and create systems that benefit all. That is why I declared a major in political science during my sophomore year, and I haven't looked back. We need to offer patience and understanding to those who struggle with learning disabilities. Be patient to those with learning disabilities because it takes some time to process information for them to better understand it. Refrain from labeling someone as slow or lazy when labeling a person with a learning disability. Instead, realize that these challenges are neurological or cognitive in nature and can be supported with the right accommodations or strategies. In public areas or in the workplace, you might have to repeat information more than once or say information from a different angle to clarify it for people with learning disabilities. It's not hard to do the right thing, especially when someone else is struggling. Schools can also incorporate technologies such as speech-to-text software and interactive learning tools to help students engage and comprehend better in school. A teacher can use speech-to-text software for students with learning disabilities by helping them who struggle with writing skills express their ideas and thinking rather than focusing on spelling and grammar. This can lead to confidence in students and for students to be able to participate in all activities. With the appropriate accommodations like speech-to-text software, extra time on exams, and assistive note-taking, students can significantly improve their academic performance. Mentorship is also a key aspect to learning with a disability. Mentorship has been important to me because without the amazing mentors in my life, I wouldn't be where I am today. Everyone can be a mentor in someone's life. You can even be a mentor and not even realize it. Societally, we need to understand that mentorship is the key to success. Mentors have opened my eyes into realizing that you can transform your weakness into a superpower by fostering unique problem-solving skills and creative thinking. Embracing different learning styles can lead into innovative ways of learning. Ultimately, overcoming challenges associated with learning disabilities can build resilience and adaptability, turning perceived limitations into strengths, and strengths leads to confidence, confidence to achieve something once thought impossible. Doctors told me that with my apraxia, it would be impossible for me to ever give a speech. What would they think of this TEDx talk? Thank you.
Thank you, Griffin. Now please welcome our next speaker, Macy Granville, a sophomore studying secondary English education from Sugar Land, Texas. Her talk is titled, "Are Today's Young Athletes Really Winning?" Please welcome Macy.
At some of the most influential points in their lives, young athletes place their identities in sports. So what happens when you love competing, but you're not good enough to play at the next level? What happens when your devotion to a sport starts to harm your family life? What happens when scholarships and financial pressures begin to cloud your genuine love for a sport? Every athlete has some driving factor that pushes them to want to succeed. We know this, yet the world's definition of success often clashes with the realities each athlete, each family, and each community experience. I come from a big sports family, and through this I've noticed many gaps in America's sports industry that affect young athletes and their families. To truly support these individuals, we need to reframe the meaning of success, shifting the focus from earning scholarships and elevating performance to valuing personal growth and the actual enjoyment of sports. Now, success looks different in different contexts, and it's the easiest to identify at the broadest level. It's no secret the American sports industry brings in big money. This past Super Bowl, for example, brought in over $1 billion. And though it may surprise you, college sports bring in similar numbers. Obviously, popularity varies depending on the sport, but college sports as a whole make billions of dollars per year. And student athletes benefit from this revenue. Many of them receive scholarships, but just a few years ago, the NCAA took this a step further. Players could now opt into what are called NIL deals, which is money earned separate from scholarships, centered around branding. So you perform and you earn a check. Caitlin Clark here, for example, signed a multi-million-dollar contract with State Farm. But most college athletes aren't popular enough to represent companies as big as State Farm. You'd be surprised, though, by the role small businesses and donors play in supporting their local teams through NIL. And this cash flow coming in raises the stakes for college coaches who want to win championships. They can now recruit with the promise of guaranteed money. My brother Max, who plays football at Penn State and earns money through NIL, sees this industry as a pie. Now, everyone wants their slice of this money pie, from the schools, the businesses investing in it, and the athletes themselves. So as monies roll and the college sports industry has skyrocketed, the meaning of motivation has shifted for student athletes. Success is less team-oriented and more individually driven. Players are now jumping teams to suit their best financial interests, leaving their education, the whole point of college, as a mere afterthought. So, at the college sports level, success must be shifted from monetary value to high-level performance and education. Let's shift gears from college-level athletics to youth level. I want to place you in the shoes of a parent. So you see this industry has a promising element for your kids. Sports have the promise to pay for education and now potentially pay extra money to athletes. So what do you do if you see a promising industry that could pave the way for your child's future? You invest. Now, in theory, every kid has the opportunity to go out for sports in schools. But if you're a parent, you want your child to excel. Your kid's on the swimming team, but is he a top swimmer? Putting him on a competitive team provides a year-round opportunity for him to stay consistent and set himself apart from the swimmers at school. Now again, every sport is different, but the consensus is if a parent is paying extra money to better their kid's athletic ability, chances are they'll see better results. And parents are paying thousands of dollars, some per month, to put their kids through competitive sports. This isn't realistic for the majority of families across America, but even for families who can't afford it, it's not easy. Financial and time commitments can easily harm family dynamics. Many of you could probably relate to the dad yelling at you after a rough soccer game feeling I experienced as a kid. In the moment, it sucks, but now seeing what parents do to support their kids through competitive sports, I get it. My dad used to play linebacker professionally, and as a father, he just wanted us to experience the same success he once had. It's normal for parents to feel passion for what their kids are passionate about, but it's when expectations aren't met and voices are raised that relationships can be harmed. So, on this journey to succeed at the youth level, families carry financial and relational weight. But the heaviest of expectations lay on the athletes themselves. College, money, and parents are putting young athletes in a pressure cooker. This comes from every direction, from their coaches to win games, from their parents to earn scholarships, and from themselves to perform well. The desire to succeed, once a passion, becomes a burden. My oldest brother, Life, used to want to play Division I basketball more than anything in the world. He even switched schools halfway through high school to play on a better team. And he'd wake up very early to first work out, then drive an hour away to school every day for 2 years. And while his hard work was admirable, Life neglected many important parts of his life in the process, like resting and socializing. Without realizing it, he'd spiraled into physical and mental burnout. Life's desire to achieve his dreams, Life wanted to achieve his dreams more than anything, but his dreams ended up overshadowing his physical and mental needs in the moment. It's easy for young athletes to view success as transactional. If they score enough points in a game, if their team wins the championship, or if they receive their first Division I offer, then they'll have succeeded. But this definition of success often drives athletes away from their genuine love of the sport and into burnout. So, growing financial incentives, parental pressures, and personal goals consume athletes in the name of success. In pursuit of it, they sacrifice academic, financial, and emotional wellness. But what if we were to invite wellness into our definitions of success? Let me ask you, what if it were okay to love a sport without wanting to play at the next level? how can we prioritize our families above our sports? How can we make it okay to quit a sport we don't love anymore? By asking questions that consider the wellness of athletes, we can prioritize them above their sports. And in this new defining of success, it's only then can today's athletes truly start winning. Thank you.
Thank you, Macy. For our last speaker of the first half for tonight, we have Dania Ortiz, a sophomore studying communications from Holland, Michigan, with her talk, The Other Side of the American Dream. Please welcome Dania.
From a very young age, the word papers echoed through my household, a term that only brought confusion to my mind. I would think to myself, there's blank white paper in the basement. But as I grew older, the weight of that word started to sink in. It wasn't about literal sheets of paper. It was about a sense of belonging, about legal recognition, and ultimately the future of my family. Most of my childhood was spent sitting in immigration offices. The details of those places still vivid. The musky scent of old carpet, the frigid air, and the cold leather chairs. The feeling of a cold leather chair is not one that every child grows to hate. As a kid, I thought these experiences were normal. I thought every kid spent their afternoons in waiting rooms where silence hung heavy. I'd watch my parents, their faces showing determination, but with cracks that let their worry seep through. And I'd sit there, a child lost in thought, blissfully unaware of what was happening, while my parents carried the weight of our reality. Growing up, one of the things I loved to do the most was watch movies or TV shows with my family. It was nice for us to just be a family. In one of the shows that we watched, people had to switch their identities, and I heard the term green card, a term I had never heard of before, but in the show, they used it as a form of identification. One day, when I was in the car with my mom, I asked her what a green card was. I was sitting in the back seat, and I looked through the rearview mirror, and I was met with nothing but confusion and fear. She asked where I'd heard the term, and I told her from the show. This is one of the first few memories I have of my mom explaining their citizenship status to me, and that it wasn't something to go around telling people. I was 7, and she trusted that secret to be kept by a 7-year-old. According to community psychology, approximately 5.9 million US citizen children have at least one caregiver who does not have authorization to reside in the United States. When children become aware of their parents' citizenship status, there's a constant anxiety, a wondering of whether their parents will come home or if that's the day the world turns upside down. As I grew older, the fear still lingered, but I thought we were safer. But on September 4th of 2024, I was that little girl sitting in an immigration office again. My biggest fear was now my reality. My father was detained by ICE. A phrase I never thought would be coming out of my mouth. On September 4th, at around 10:15 a.m., I received a phone call from my mom while I was at work. From the moment I picked up the phone, I knew something wasn't right. When she said my father had been picked up by ICE, my head started to spin, and I didn't know what to say. What can you even say? It's strange to describe the feeling of someone you love is just gone. There's an emptiness in the house where his presence used to be, his routines and laughter woven into every corner. The silence left behind feels heavier, a constant reminder of what's missing. It's strange to grieve someone who's still alive, to know that they're out there, living in a different place, trying to adapt to a reality they didn't choose. It's a loss that doesn't fit neatly into any category because it's not about an ending, but a forced separation, one that leaves you feeling helpless and heartbroken. And this brought me back to being a child and seeing how strong my parents were, yet so powerless at the same time. As a child, I always knew I was different, but I never thought that was a bad thing. It was either the language that I spoke or the color of my skin that made me stand out. And there was one label I didn't even know existed. I was called the child of immigrants. As I grew older, I acknowledge that term, and I wear it with pride because I am living and existing in their honor for everything they have done to provide me with a life filled of opportunity. I always said I wasn't going to go to Mexico unless my father could go with me. And while it wasn't his choice to return, visiting him in Mexico was a healing experience for me. Visiting Mexico helped me understand myself and my parents more. While I hadn't previously lived these experiences, I felt like I was living a part of my dad's life. As a Mexican American, I feel an undeniable pull to the land in Mexico, a haunting and romantic thing, like a version of yourself who never was, but feels undeniably real. The culture of our parents gets passed down and becomes less a story of survival and more a collection of memories. And then you make it to Mexico, and it's strange. You fit in, but you don't quite belong. You speak the same language and share the same skin color, but they know you're American. When it comes to describing their identity, the Pew Research Center found that most Hispanics prefer to identify themselves with their family's country of origin. 51% say they most often identify with their family's country of origin over pan-ethnic terms. That includes terms such as Mexican, Cuban, or Dominican, while 24% say they most often use terms like Hispanic or Latino, and 21% say they just use the term American. The reason these labels matter is they give a sense of belonging to different communities. Interestingly enough, during one of the hardest moments in my life, I finally felt like I had more control over these labels and my identity. Mexico's not home, yet it feels like home. It's a place that may whisper to one, culture knows no borders. Your heritage tugs at you, asking you questions you sometimes cannot answer, leaving you in a quiet combat of identity. Here, that struggle softens. You see here the echoes of the life your parents lived and left. It is an act of great humility and profundity to realize, while you may not be living here, this place knows you. It sees roots you didn't plant, but still nourishes you. It doesn't ask anything from you, it just welcomes you, as it has always done. Throughout my childhood, I would see my dad watch YouTube videos from his hometown. It would either be of quinceañeras or weddings, but would still show so much of the town. And there's times where he'd tell me, if you turn down that street, that's where your grandma and grandpa live. And I finally felt like I had stepped through the TV screen. And through this all, my identity has felt woven between two flags. One is green, white, and red with the proud eagle at its center, the colors of my Mexican heritage, a deep part of who I am. And the other flag is blue, scattered with stars, crossed by red and white stripes. The American flag, the country that has shaped me, the country in which I was born and raised in. I feel both of them wrapped around me, holding me up, but pulling me into two different directions. I am both. And yet moments like this make me feel like I don't fully belong to either. Even amidst fear and uncertainty, my parents' unwavering love, hope, and courage taught me that purpose and resilience can transform even the hardest barriers into opportunities for growth and joy. When my father was deported, our family faced a heart-wrenching separation. But we didn't let that define us. Instead, we leaned on the strength of our bonds, finding ways to persevere despite the distance and pain. My father's dedication to remain a source of guidance and love, even from afar, showed me the purpose of resilience in the face of injustice. This experience has taught me to see the humanity behind every story. The struggles we all endure in pursuit of a better life. I encourage you all to be aware of the humanity behind every story, to acknowledge this struggle, this constant balancing act for so many immigrant families. We live in a space between two countries, between hope and fear, between feeling like we belong and feeling like we don't. And while I may have grown up hearing about papers, I now understand it is so much more than that. It's about family, dreams, security, and the right to call a place home. Thank you.
Thank you, Dania. We will now take a 15-minute intermission. Please feel free to go to our concessions if you haven't used your vouchers, and we'll see you in 15 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back to TEDxHopeCollege 2025. We will conclude the night with our next 4 speakers. Next up, we have Confiance Buyu, a senior studying secondary education from Holland, Michigan. His talk is titled, "The Mirror in the Classroom, Why Black Male Teachers Matter." Please welcome Confiance to the stage.
Imagine a world where every child sees themselves reflected in their teachers. A world where black boys can easily envision themselves as agents of change, inspired by mentors who look like them. This world is possible, but we're facing an invisible crisis that's holding us back. As a proud future black male educator and a student at Hope College, I stand here before you today not just as a speaker, but as a testament to what's possible when we invest in diversity in education. My family and I moved to the United States in 2018 from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Growing up, I always had a black male teacher, a teacher that looked like me. And throughout my high school journey in America, I never had a black male teacher. And I didn't know how that was going to affect me as a black male student in the United States. And let me tell you, that absence spoke volumes. This absence wasn't just felt within my classroom, but it is a tangible reality found across the nation. Only 2% of teachers in the United States are black men. Yet black students make up 15% of the student population. This disparity represents a missed opportunity for connection, understanding, and growth. Here at Hope College, I had an opportunity to have a black male professor that changed my life, which is not the case for many black students at predominantly white institutions. My freshman year, I was invited to an event that was organized for students of color who are majoring in education. I remember when I walked into the room, I saw a black man. I was so shocked. But at the same time, I was so happy that I wasn't the only black person in the room. So throughout the event, I was so eager to introduce myself. And after the event, I was able to introduce myself, and he asked about my Hope experience. I remember feeling a sense of comfortability because he said to me, "It's okay, be honest." Him giving me that opportunity to be open with him was what I needed at that moment. So after a week, I decided to reach out back to him because I was so confused about my education major. And he was the only professor in the education department that I felt comfortable talking to. So you're probably thinking, why was he the only professor out of all the 20 professors in the education department that I felt comfortable talking to? Well, I felt comfortable talking to him because I saw someone who looked like me. I saw someone who I wanted to be when I grew up. So he finally emailed me back, and he said that he's not able to meet with me until 10 p.m. I was shocked as you are. Because I have never heard of a professor who would want to meet with a student that late. But I soon realized that this wasn't just a meeting. This was a pivotal moment that redefined my college journey. Hour after hour, we planned my classes, discussed my aspirations, and crafted a vision for my 4 years at Hope College. He didn't just believe in me. He invested in me. He saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself, potential. And let me tell you, I felt like everything was going to be okay after that meeting. And I am not the only student that Dr. Yelding has sacrificed his time for. So now you're probably thinking, what's so special about a late night meeting? But let me tell you, it's not about the time on the clock. It's about the impact of one person believing in you when you're struggling to believe in yourself. It's about the power of mentorship, the magic that happens when someone sees your potential and dedicates themselves to helping you realize it. If I didn't have someone who looked like me here at Hope, or someone who encouraged me to keep reaching for the stars, I would have either transferred or dropped out of Hope College. So this goes to show you that students, especially black students, need a teacher who they can feel comfortable talking to, a teacher who the students are going to feel comfortable sharing their struggles, and the teacher will be welcoming, and the teacher will help them, guide them in the right path to success. Last year, I was given an opportunity to intern at the Watts Learning Center in Los Angeles, California, which is known for providing a quality education to students living in the Watts area. I remember during this internship, I saw teachers who looked like me. These black educators were making a real difference in students' lives, which had encouraged me to realize that I have the ability to be there for black students and make a significant impact on them. We need to change the narrative. Being a teacher isn't just a job. It's a calling. It's a chance to shape the future to be the person you needed when you were young. However, we must address the unique value that black male educators bring to the classroom. They are not just teachers. They are role models and a living proof of what's possible. Research from Johns Hopkins shows that having just one black male teacher decreases the high school dropout rate for black boys by 39%. I'll say that again, 39%, and increases the college aspirations. One teacher, one role model, one person who says, I see you, I understand you, and I believe in you. During my time in Watts, one of the black male educators said to me that black male teachers spend more time mentoring and counseling students than teachers of any demographic because they serve as role models who relate more easily to students' perspectives and challenges. Like I said earlier, we need more teachers, especially teachers who look like me. I challenge each and every one of you to be a part of this change. If you're an educator, deliberately advocate for diversity in your school. This could mean pushing for diverse hiring practices in your school district, and also creating mentoring programs that will support students of color who are interested in teaching. And if you are a policymaker, advocate for mentoring programs that will support the recruitment and retention of black male teachers. And if you are a student, especially a young black man, consider teaching. You have the power to change lives, including your own. But also be fervent in your efforts toward teaching, cultivating an environment that is welcoming and inspiring for all black students. Like I said earlier, you have the power to change lives, including your own. There are programs like Call Me Mister that aim to recruit and retain talented black male teachers to stay in the profession. We need more initiatives like this to help black male teachers to stay in the profession and make a difference. As a proud future black male educator, I want to exist in a world that every child is reflected in their teachers. A world where every black male educator is supported, valued, and seen. Be the change. I'll say that again. Be the change. Because you have the power. You have the power to change lives. Because your silence serves no one. Your silence serves no one. Thank you.
Thank you, Confiance. Next up, we have Ashley Lorraine, a senior studying biology from Holland, Michigan. Her talk is titled, Education Needs More Glue and Less Google. Please welcome Ashley.
Her eyes light up as her hand shoots into the air. Miss Ashley, I know the answer. It's the tympanic membrane. Here it is. Let me show you. My camper beams as she points to the membrane on the frog's head. Moments like this are why I teach. In that moment, seeds of curiosity are planted. Confidence takes root, and a genuine passion for science blooms. These are the transformations that I have been privileged to witness in my 9 years at Explore Hope summer science camps. In that time, I've seen countless other sparks ignite. The wide-eyed awe of a student dissecting their first specimen, the infectious laughter of children testing their baking soda volcanoes, and the sheer joy accompanying a hard-earned aha moment. These moments transcend mere academic learning and represent the beauty of hands-on education. They testify to the power of engaging the senses, connecting emotionally, and learning collaboratively. In an era increasingly dominated by digital learning, hands-on education is vital for cultivating curiosity, resilience, and empathy. Over the past decade, education has undergone a seismic shift. Technology has revolutionized learning, making it more accessible and convenient than ever before. But at what cost? During the COVID-19 pandemic, digital tools became lifelines, allowing students to continue their education safely from home. Virtual classrooms and online platforms flourished, a testament to human ingenuity. Yet, as we continue forward, the unintended consequences of this digital dominance are becoming impossible to ignore. Almost 5 years after the height of the pandemic, many classrooms still remain overly reliant on screen-based learning. Digital tools offer convenience, but replace the tactile experiences that make hands-on learning so unique. Screens can provide instant answers and shortcuts, but diminish the persistence needed to solve real-world challenges, isolating learners instead of fostering collaboration. Let me be clear. Technology is not a bad thing. I'm concerned about the elimination of hands-on learning. By prioritizing experiential, collaborative learning over the more passive, screen-based methods, we can equip the next generation with the skills they need to thrive. Imagine 2 students tasked with building a bridge to support a small weight. The first student participates in a virtual simulation. They click and drag materials across the screen, relying on preset algorithms to test the bridge's strength. While the simulation provides feedback, the student misses out on the tactile experience of creating something of their own. The second student builds the bridge physically, out of popsicle sticks and glue. As they carefully cut, align, and secure the pieces, they encounter real challenges. Glue that takes time to dry, pieces that don't fit perfectly, and the need to problem solve when the structure collapses under weight. They feel the satisfaction of creating something with their own 2 hands and are developing problem-solving skills along the way. While both students complete the same task, the physical experience fosters a deeper connection to the process and develops problem-solving, critical thinking, and resilience in ways that the virtual simulation simply cannot replicate. The growing reliance on technology has significantly shifted how our students approach challenges. In my time at the science camps, I've observed an increasing impatience with trial and error projects. Students expect immediate results. This mindset is shaped by digital tools that provide instant answers and shortcuts. For example, in TEDx Lego Camp, our students create Lego cars to race against their classmates. They're not given any instructions, besides that their cars have at least 2 wheels, so you can imagine the variety of vehicles they come up with. Years ago, students would occasionally struggle, but with encouragement would persist until they succeeded. But now, students are far more prone to giving up when their initial attempts fail, refusing to continue the activity, and even asking the teacher to do it for them so that it can be done right. This reluctance to embrace failure undermines the creative problem-solving and resilience that hands-on learning naturally fosters. In the science of Star Wars, students are tasked with building an escape pod for R2-D2 and C-3PO to keep them safe as they are hurtling through space and landing on Tatooine. Groups of students are given 20 minutes and a variety of materials to protect a raw egg dropped from a balcony. Unfortunately for R2-D2 and C-3PO, this activity is designed for them to fail. Most of the eggs will break, but that's the amazing part. They get a chance to analyze their mistakes and try again. In the second round, most, if not all, of the eggs survive. Students are learning how to cope with failure and mistakes while developing problem-solving and communication skills. Digital environments often foster individualized, isolated learning, where personal responsibility and collective accountability are less emphasized. Recognizing and addressing these gaps drives my passion for hands-on education. Hands-on education fosters teamwork and empathy. Empathy is the foundation for meaningful connection and collaboration. It is a powerful tool for creating stronger, kinder, and more connected communities in a world where division and misunderstanding have become the standard. When students work with someone else on a project, they're able to step into their shoes for a moment and see how they live their life. In diverse workplaces, empathy helps teams navigate cultural nuances, harness varied perspectives, and resolve conflicts. In society, empathy is vital for people to be able to solve global challenges. Hands-on learning fosters the development of empathy through collaborative projects and shared challenges. One particular experience stands out to me. In CSI camp, we had 25 excited students ready to solve the mystery donut caper. Among them was a neurodivergent student who struggled with blurting and self-regulation when the classroom got too loud. As teachers, we were prepared to support him, but some of his fellow students didn't understand why he didn't face the same consequences they did when he would disrupt the class, or why he was given a fidget to help him focus. But by the end of the week, after participating in group activities like fingerprinting and riddle solving, the students' perspectives shifted. They no longer complained about what they saw as special treatment, and instead made a conscious effort to make him more engaged and comfortable in all the activities. This illustrates how hands-on learning fosters empathy. Empathy is more than a personal trait. It is a critical societal tool. And hands-on learning is more than a teaching method. It's an educational philosophy rooted in engaging the whole person, mind, body, and heart. When students roll up their sleeves and dive into projects, they're not just learning concepts, but developing life skills. Through trial and error projects, they learn to analyze mistakes, refine strategies, and persist, mirroring real-world challenges, where success depends on adaptability, not perfection. But what changes from the classroom to real life? In my opinion, not much. Hands-on learning allows students to grow skills that will help them live a good life. My mother says, living a good life is to live well and love well. To live well is to thrive in all aspects of life, the physical, the social, and emotional. But to love well is to connect deeply, empathize, and build bridges across divides. Hands-on learning nurtures both. It allows students to succeed personally, but also to meaningfully embrace the world and give something else to it. Reflecting on my 9 years at Explore Hope Summer Science Camps, I'm reminded of the countless students whose lives I have seen transformed by hands-on learning. One particular student stands out to me. He has been to all 6 weeks of camp every summer since kindergarten, and now he's in 5th grade. The early years were rough. He struggled with sitting still, working with others, and would often act out in class. He quickly became well known among the staff, with new teachers being warned about his behavior. But over the years, I've watched him grow into an empathetic boy and an enthusiastic learner. Now, when he's having a rough day, or if he's just feeling overwhelmed, he comes up to me and he says, "Miss Ashley, I need to take a walk." And so we do. Sometimes we talk, other times I just give him the silence that he needs to self-regulate. And by the time we return to the classroom, he jumps back into the activity with renewed vigor. His journey is just one of many that I've witnessed, each reinforcing a fundamental truth. When learning engages not just the mind, but also the body and heart, it fosters growth in ways that go far beyond academics. Neglecting this approach risks stagnation and division, limiting the potential of future generations. Education is everyone's responsibility, since impacts ripple throughout society. Teachers may be on the front lines, but parents, community members, and policymakers all have vital roles to play. Parents can foster their child's educational journey at home through activities that build curiosity, like cooking, gardening, and building projects. Community members can support education by funding after-school programs, organizing science fairs, and just creating opportunities for children to explore their interests. Policymakers shape the educational framework through funding and curriculum design, ensuring that all students have access to the resources they need to thrive. You can also share the importance of this approach with others, your friends, your family, and even on social media, showing how important hands-on learning can be to creating well-rounded individuals and raising the next generation right. You can also encourage others, especially children, to explore, ask questions, and embrace challenges. We can all contribute to raising the next generation of creative, compassionate, and capable leaders. Imagine a future where every child is empowered to explore, create, and lead. What role will you play in making that vision a reality? Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Now, for our next speaker of the night, we have Allie Guffey. a junior studying psychology from Zeeland, Michigan, who was born 21 years ago yesterday. So, her talk is titled, Rehumanizing the Person Behind the Sign. Please welcome Allie Guffey.
Come on, guys. Let's talk about goats.
Situation. Are there any emotions being evoked? I used to ask myself many questions when encountering a person who is homeless. Why are they homeless? Should I even go near them? It's safest just to look down and walk by as if they aren't there, right? I began to realize that this narrative was less about the person and more about the label we've collectively decided fits this group of people. We should be asking ourselves, who is this person, rather than what is this person? Unhoused individuals are so much more than their housing status. In fact, many of us are about one unpaid medical bill or lost job away from living on the streets alongside those we deem less than human. So, what if through empathy and perspective taking, we could change the way we think about and act towards our unhoused neighbors? Then, we can better understand the depth of the cardboard sign that many of our unhoused neighbors hold. During my freshman year at Hope College, I went on an immersion trip to Austin, Texas. I held many of the common stereotypes and assumptions of a homeless person. I guarded myself and saw this generalized group as dangerous, rather than individuals capable of love and deserving of relationships. That all changed when I met John. John was quiet and fairly reserved, but getting to know him came easy. I joined him near the bonfire and we began talking about his story, where he's been, where he is now, and where he hopes to be one day. We spent a while talking about his new cat, Shadow. He called him this because he followed John around everywhere he went. He started telling me a couple of his favorite things about Shadow, that he's adventurous and he loves people. But the best thing about Shadow is that no matter how far he wanders away, he always knows that he belongs with John in their tiny home. On the day we left, we spent some time saying our see you laters. While hugging John goodbye, I noticed something. He was wearing short sleeves, revealing two beautiful arm tattoos. One was of the crucified Jesus, as if it were hanging in an elaborate cathedral. The other was a Bible verse written on a banner in calligraphy spanning the width of his frail arm. I shared with excitement how much I loved his tattoos. I recently, and rebelliously, had gotten a tattoo myself, so I began showing him mine. He responded with a gentle thank you, saying, "It was the first thing I did when I was on the street." I was shocked by the immense talent required to capture such beautiful images simply with ink and a needle. He asked me if it hurt to get my tattoo, to which I responded, "I don't tolerate pain too well, so I'm not the best person to ask. What about you?" John looked at me with kind eyes and said, "Nah, I was smoking weed when I did mine. I don't do the hard drugs, though. Just smoke some weed from time to time." We continued to share stories and laughs. I hugged him goodbye, and we went our separate ways. John challenged everything I previously knew about homelessness. Hearing pieces of his story and the few interactions I shared with him was the beginning of a paradigm shift in how I understood homelessness. I knew his love for Shadow. I knew his desire for a community. I began to see our common humanity in the laughs and stories we shared. I understood what it meant to see him, a previously homeless man who smoked some weed here and there, but not the hard stuff, as a neighbor, a friend. Seeing unhoused individuals as fully themselves is what's missing from the issue of homelessness. Sociologist and nonprofit CEO Kevin Adler states that we must embrace our unhoused neighbors as people to be loved, not problems to be solved. We can begin to humanize homelessness by approaching our unhoused neighbors with empathy and compassion rather than as a burden or inconvenience. This photo offers us nothing but information, yet we often find ourselves assigning stories and traits to the person behind the sign. To justify our walking by, it's not uncommon for us to paint a picture of this person as a threat to our safety. We say that giving them money feeds into their laziness. Offering them means to buy more drugs, perpetuating the issue. In reality, assuming the worst in an unhoused neighbor is what is perpetuating the issue, further stigmatizing it. No one wakes up in the morning and decides that this is the day they will live on the street, unable to find food to fill their stomachs, or a public restroom to use. In social psychology, the attribution theory takes two routes in clarifying how a person justifies or does not justify a person's actions or experiences. Dispositional or situational attribution. Adhering to common stereotypes is taking a dispositional approach, meaning the core factor of justification relies on internal traits. These are traits like laziness, lack of work ethic, unintelligence, or other traits that make you question a person's capability or deservingness of being homeless. An alternative route is situational attribution, which focuses on the external traits of a person. This can happen to anybody, anytime in their lives. Questions one may ask include, how affordable is the housing market? Or are there any biases present? In other words, what barriers are in place that may prevent a person from gaining housing? Dispositional attribution lays the foundation for societal stereotypes, pushing people further from access to healthy, meaningful relationships. When a person's worthiness of human rights and necessities are defined by stereotypes, groups become marginalized, as we see in our unhoused neighbors. Not only do these stereotypes restrict people from gaining needed resources, but they also are a barrier that separates them from relationships. The separation is caused by a lack of empathy, which is crucial when thinking about homelessness. Brené Brown, best-selling author and doctor of psychology, defines empathy as an emotional skill set that allows us to understand what a person is experiencing and to relate back that understanding to that person. Meaning, we don't have to have the same experiences as another person to practice empathy. By using active listening, we can demonstrate that we understand what a person is experiencing even when we don't know how to fix it. I want to tag a specific branch of empathy called perspective taking. Teresa Wiseman, doctor of psychology, defines this as recognizing someone's perspective as truth. Saying, I believe you, is one of the most powerful things we can offer a person experiencing trauma. Now, you may be asking, why don't we just put everyone experiencing homelessness in a house? They'll be off the streets and the problem will be solved, right? This seems like the logical thing to do, but is it really? In the UK in 2021, the halfway housing study was conducted. Participants were given a house, but no job. Accountability, but no needed resources or integration back into society, leading to conditions like depression. This ultimately landed them back on the street, developing what's known as relational poverty, being deprived of one's human right and need for relationships. Putting all physical needs aside, many unhoused neighbors don't have access to healthy, meaningful relationships. This is where Community First Village comes in, the place where I met John. Community First Village is a housing-first model that offers a house as well as relationships to people who are formerly chronically homeless, defined by 1 or more years of people living on the streets or somewhere else inhabitable. It's really quite spectacular. By being given a house and a community, residents are able to flourish, a key component in understanding housing. When down in Austin, I met another neighbor named Blair. Blair spent 3.5 years on the street, unable to find housing and unsure of what his life looked like. Blair is the perfect example of why this model works so well. By being given a house and a community, Blair is able to care for his neighbors. Blair's known as the mayor by many people in the community, and if you ask him why, it's because he cares for his neighbors. Blair keeps a flip phone on him at all times, so he's available to anybody at any given moment. However, most of these calls are often coming from someone simply yearning for a friend, looking for a hello. Okay, let's take a step back and relate this to a more relatable idea. Let's say you come down with a common cold. Your throat is sore, your body's aching, you have a fever. Who are you going to call? Do you have someone like Blair to call?
I know I have people in my life who I can call who would meet my needs when I am too sick to meet them myself. A simple call is the difference between you and many people who find themselves homeless. This is an immense privilege, a privilege that most of my unhoused neighbors don't have. So, where do you fit into this picture? You may, like most people, just avoid eye contact because you're scared that you're going to be asked for money or food. The truth is, you might be. Don't get me wrong, just judgment is always required when engaging with someone unfamiliar. But it's not about what the person asks for, but rather if you choose to see them as a fellow human. If you don't have money or you don't want to give money, kindly say that. Your honesty matters more than anything you will physically give a person, because being treated like a human means being honest. Avoiding a person by ignoring their suffering is shutting off a piece of your humanity. This may sound jarring, but empathy is what we're made for, the means by which we're connected. The homeless crisis is so much more than houses. It's the depth of human need for empathy, relationships, and the mere recognition of being human. I'm going to put up this photo one last time. Let's say you're walking out of the theater tonight and you see someone holding the sign. What will your response be? This is a person who has a name, who is or once was a son or daughter, a brother or sister, possibly a father or mother. They have loved and lost, cared and been cared for, just as you and I have, just as humans deserve. What is their name? Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. Now, please welcome our final speaker of the night, Nico Kozlauskas, a sophomore studying visual art education from Naperville, Illinois. His talk is titled, Weaving Webs of Influence. Please welcome Nico.
Why do artists believe a goat stuffed in a tire on the floor is representative of the interconnectedness of human life? This bizarre work of art is what American artist Robert Rauschenberg called a combine. He wasn't just making art, but creating a connection between art and space. Rauschenberg's work bridged two worlds: the tangible world of physical objects and the intangible world of art itself. By inviting us into a space where art and life intersected, the very act of viewing became more than just looking. It became participating, connecting the audience to his art and to each other through a shared experience. This idea of connection has stuck with me, not just in art, but in how we interact with the world and the people around us. We're all goats and tires, impacting the lives of those around us. In my personal work as an artist, I've explored this very idea of connection. One piece, Bridge for Influence, was directly inspired by this talk. It's a visualization of connection, a literal and metaphorical web that connects the audience to the art as communal shared space, connecting the audience to each other as they have a communal act of viewing art as a group. This web of connection isn't just something we create. It's something we live within daily. The image of a web for connectivity and the very act of giving a speech became almost synonymous. I began to notice this web whenever I reflected on my concepts, behaviors, and interactions. In fact, organizing my own thoughts for this TEDx talk resulted in the creation of a physical web on how to structure it. This web began to become prevalent and noticeable inside human interaction and learning. where one person's daily life intertwines with the life of another, where one action connected to another on the web can change someone else entirely. How we live affects others whether or not we're conscious of it. Picture yourself walking into a classroom full of students, but absent of any furniture. Half of the students are sitting on the floor, and half of the students are standing up. What do? It remains a personal preference to determine what norms take hold of your behavior. If you like to sit, you'll sit. And if you like to stand, you'll stand. But what if you walk into a classroom where everyone sits on the floor? Then what do? You'll sit. Even if you prefer to stand, you will observe a societal norm, learn from the environment, and adjust your behavior. Your simple act of standing or sitting creates an influence that indirectly can alter a person's perception and state of mind. We behave as students to natural influences around us. In a vast web of influence, one person's behavior creates ripples that extend to societal impact. Through interaction and observation, we adjust to societal norms, learning as students of our daily lives. This natural web of socialization reflects a process defined by Webster's dictionary as learning to behave in a way acceptable to society. It highlights how our connections act as environmental teachers, shaping how we learn, adjust, and contribute to a connected flow of influence. I came to Hope College to study visual art education, enabling me to teach grades K through 12 in the classroom. A core aspect of the department is classroom placements to implement learned theories. A core theory that stood out to me and was mentioned in every education class is the concept of the hidden curriculum. The hidden curriculum is a collection of unspoken expectations, behaviors, and values that students learn in school, but are not explicitly taught. This curriculum naturally exists and is reinforced by the teacher. Students raise their hand. The teacher is the one who speaks. The information goes on the board, and students ask to go to the bathroom. This is why adults feel awkward going to the bathroom without permission in college. We have been indirectly taught that we need to ask. And when this culture shifts, we also need to adjust to a new custom that feels wrong. In most cases, this hidden curriculum is intentional and curated by teachers. Educators can take how their students behave and adjust the hidden curriculum to fit how they want their students to learn. If you've ever walked into a classroom with seats set up in a circle, you may have thought, great, no lecture today. Or, shoot, I didn't do the readings, and now I need to discuss it. Either way, you knew you would participate in a group discussion. No one explicitly told you, but the teacher set and altered the class environment by simply rearranging seats. The indirect culture of a classroom is highly malleable. It can be manipulated, changed, and set up so students behave and connect in specific ways, designed for an idealistic learning and teaching experience. Within a web of influence, this hidden curriculum extends beyond the classroom into daily life, forming a culture where its members observe and learn. It turns daily life into a daily lesson and a learning process where we behave as teachers to one another while simultaneously acting as students to natural influence. People create vibrations of action, which allow other points to change their frequencies, teaching others to emphasize, adapt, or even disregard daily habits. At a crosswalk, the timer hits 0, the halt light turns off, and the walk light turns on for pedestrians, but no one moves because a car creeps forward. Then one person confidently steps off the curb and begins to cross. Suddenly, everyone else follows. That one pedestrian taught an indirect lesson. It is safe to cross. They didn't announce their decision or ask others to follow, but by simply modeling confidence in action, shifting the group dynamic, and turning hesitation into pro-action, they became an indirect teacher. We're all indirect teachers to one another. It's how we choose to live and teach that comprises the lessons and curriculum that we share. Our lives can affect others positively or negatively. We teach those around us regardless if we intend to or not. It's the way we choose to live that becomes our lessons and the way students, in turn, will adapt to them. As teachers, we can start to notice and take note of our influence on the environment around us. A passionate and purposeful life, one filled with intentional pursuits and devotion to how we choose to live, invites family, friends, even strangers to recognize a new way of being, thinking, or even living. A complacent and negative lifestyle, one of uncertainty and indecisiveness, invites others not so much to live, but to merely exist within a meaningless reality. Picture yourself walking into a classroom absent of any furniture. You are the first one here. Whether you choose to stand or sit remains a personal preference. Soon, another person follows in your footsteps, then another, and another, learning from what you taught them. Our lives are a part of an interconnected web where every action sends vibrational ripples, teaching and influencing those around us. In this shared network, we are both students and teachers, navigating a dynamic exchange of lessons and impact. Much like a teacher curating a hidden curriculum to guide learning, we can curate the hidden curriculum of our own lives. We work to blend the abstract and the tangible, much like Rauschenberg and his combines, the intangible connections of influence, and the concrete actions of daily life. By living deliberately and acting with intention, we create small vibrational ripples that reverberate into waves of influence, shaping societal culture. We participate actively in this web. What kind of actions and connections are you going to create while you weave your own web? I encourage you to create a web that inspires transformation and fosters meaningful connection in every aspect of our wildly connected life. Thank you.
Thank you, Nico. As we conclude tonight's event, let's reflect on our theme of resilient identity. The powerful stories shared here tonight have illuminated the strength that comes from adversity and have hopefully inspired each of us to embrace our own resilience. I would like to express my deep gratitude to the executive team who helped make tonight possible. Callista, our event manager, Grant, our tech lead, Max, our executive producer, and then I'd also like to thank our dedicated curators, Eric, Cameron, Matthew, and Allison. It has been a pleasure to work with all of you. A special thanks to Andrew, our advisor, somewhere back there, whose guidance has been invaluable, and to all of our volunteers, whose guidance has been invaluable. Oh, I'm tripping over my words. Who helped set the foundation of this event. And then thank you to all of our volunteers, tech and general volunteers. Yeah. A special thank you to our Hope College events and conferences team, especially Sarah, Ben, Josh, Freddie, and Mike for your steadfast support. And of course, thank you to you guys, our audience. Thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging with us. We appreciate all of you here. So, yeah. Cool. Now, Now, please welcome all the speakers into joining me here on the stage. All right, cool. All right, ready? This concludes our TEDxHopeCollege 2025 event. We hope to see you next year.